Congratulations to all the new graduates out there who graduated high school and those who are graduating college and whatever degree and field they have chosen. I wish you all luck. I had a cousin that just graduated last weekend, so congratulations to her as well. So all the cousins of my generation on my dad's side have now all graduated. Cool. Into One Piece. So, chapter 1115 is titled Continental Fragments. And before we get into the chapter, we have cover page. We have the continuation of the Yamato cover page journey, where he is going to go and travel around Wano. And I like this one. Most of the ones so far that they've shown for this I like so far. Like last week we saw, or the last time we saw, Kanemon is talking to Yamato. It's just like, hey, can you return this sword to the shrine, to Yasuie's sword? It needs to go to the shrine where he lived. And she's like, of course. Or Yamato is like, of course I can do that. And then now we're seeing Hiyori and Otoko working on making like a nice big bento box for Yamato to take with him, for him to have on his journey. So this is just adorable. I like this because I don't think in the actual in the manga or even in the anime, like the little bits of scenes we saw where like Hiyori and Yamato were in the same place weren't that many. There's like the scene when like Luffy and Zoro are waking up and like, Yamato's, gets there a little bit later and stuff, but there's not really that much where we see these two interact. Yamato and Momonosuke had a lot of interaction when everything was going on the roof, and Yamato protecting Momonosuke when they were running through Onigashima with Shinobu and everything like that. So Yamato and Momonosuke have developed a very good friendship so far. Whereas we haven't really seen Yamato and Hiyori interact very much, if at all, really, where it's just been either the two of them either having a conversation or anything along those lines. I would assume that during like the, however long Luffy and Zoro were out, 3 days, week, whatever it was that they were unconscious, that Yamato probably got introduced to all of the scabbards and Hiyori and Otoko and Otama and everything like that, who we'll see later. But we never really got to see anything of Yamato and Hiyori interact with each other. And I like that we're getting this because this is showing Hiyori is just like, yep, you are my brother's friend. You are sworn yourself basically to help protect my family and help protect my country. Therefore, yes, you are my friend as well. So I like this, and this is adorable. Plus, I know a lot of people like ship Yamato and Momonosuke in some cases, but for whatever reason, don't ask me. But I actually kind of like the idea of like Yamato and Hiyori being together. I don't know why, but I like that concept. Insert whatever you want with that. So we have that one, and then going into the chapter, we start the chapter in Wano. So I love this. Great little transition there. Now, whether this is happening concurrently with Yamato going off, or if later on we'll see something where like Yamato is listening to this message, but probably not, because we cut to the Flower Capital and we see that the Straw Hat flag is now hanging underneath the Flower Capital Palace, the castle that's on like the tree thing. We see the Straw Hat flag there. So of course they set up the flag. And we get to see, we see Momonosuke, Kanemon, Shinobu, and Otama are all sitting and eating dongos, which is, of course, just adorable. And they're talking, and they're like, yeah, it's hard to believe this foreign transmission is reaching us. Yeah, we found a snail in the castle among Orochi's possessions, which makes perfect sense. I don't know if I made the comment on this or if it was just something that I made to my mom because she lets me ramble about One Piece to her, and I love her for that. Thank you, Mom. Her birthday will be next week, so happy birthday ahead of time, Mom, for that. Not that she'll watch this. But I had made the comment to somewhere, or it was to myself or whatever, but I was like, Well, Wano has the pond snails, and that's how they would communicate in Wano with each other. But we never really, I mean, like, Orochi and Kaido had, like, connections to the outside world and everything like that. And it makes perfect sense, in my opinion, for there to be, a snail that is that is just one of the transponder snails that is in Wano. It's not like Wano is outside of the range of the transponder snails. It's just that they didn't really have them there. Now they kind of do, or at least they have some left over from Orochi. Okay, side note in regards to Onigashima, I know it is now currently like in the bottom of like on top of the ruins of Wano. The underwater ruins. We'll see more of those later. But I kind of hope that, I know a lot of Onigashima got destroyed between the battles and the fire and the falling from the sky and crash landing on the ground and everything like that. I kind of hope that they kind of search through Onigashima for anything else that would be useful for them to hold on to in regards to any of Kaido's weaponry or any other supplies that might be there that would be useful for them to use, any other just additional things that would be a good idea to have this stuff set aside in case it's necessary. Either the weapons would be useful to help with defending Wano or different things like that. Any of the treasure or anything like that that may have survived. Gathering that stuff up would be very helpful to like redistribute amongst the citizens and stuff like that. But that's just my thought. So we have... as I said, we have Momonosuke, Kinemon, Shinobu, and Tama all listening in on this call. And Momonosuke is like, so you were a pirate, Joy Boy, just like Luffy. And Kinemon's like, you know of him, my lord? And of course, Momonosuke is semi-aware of Joy Boy because that, Zunisha mentioned that Joy Boy has returned when Luffy finally was able to awaken, his devil fruit, awaken the, Hito Hito no Mi model sun god Nika. So we have that reference there. So Momonosuke doesn't have the full concept, but he's got some of it. In regards to like whatever Zunisha would have mentioned or something like that when he was communicating with Zunisha. So that's nice. The message continues, and it is, now, you may be wondering how he came to be known as a pirate. And then we cut to a jail cell at the G4 naval base. I actually looked it up. I don't think we've seen the G4 naval base before. I don't think so. But we get to see some faces that we have not seen since just after the time skip. We see the fake Straw Hat Pirates, which are now the fake Kid Pirates. And their outfits are still horrible. So they are in the cells, and we see, we see Damalo Black, we see the fake Sanji, the fake Frankie, and I think the one who is supposed to be the fake Zoro are all there, and they're all dressed as, like, the Kid Pirates. I wanted to focus, hold on. And they're all dressed as the Kid Pirates, so this is just funny, because the one who I think was supposed to be the fake Sanji, whose name was, I think, Drip, he, like, has lines on his face that semi-resemble what would be, like, Killer's helmet, but they're not correct, so there's that. And, of course, Damalo Black is pretending to be Kid, even with, like, scars or fake scars, and he's probably got, like, his hair dyed red or something like that, and I'm like, dude, I am sorry, you could not pull off a fake Kid any better than you could pull off fake Luffy. So, no. And then I think the fake Frankie is, I think, Heat, and then I think is Wire, and then I think the fake Zoro is now supposed to pretending to be Heat, and then the other one's Wire. I don't remember which one's which, but I think that's the case here, so that's just kind of funny. And they're just arguing, and Drip, the fake Sanji, who is now fake fake Killer, is like, Joy Boy, who cares? I bet you could easily beat him, right, Captain Kid? And Damalo Black, fake Kid, is like, duh, the man's already dead. And then I can never remember which one's Heat and which one's Wire, but the one that's one of them is just like, That's our captain. The only thing bigger than his confidence is his belly. And I'm like, that doesn't quite work with Kid. Yeah, he can eat a lot the way that Luffy can, but that's not quite what Kid's known for. And then fake Demalo Black Kid is like, yeah, I'm clearly a million times better than this Joy toy. Moving away from that comment. And the other one's like, it's Joy Boy, boss. So that's funny. Have not seen them since post time skip, when the last time I think we saw them, either they were being arrested by the Marines or they were somehow avoided being arrested by the Marines after pretending to be the Straw Hats at Sabaody. But we don't see any of the rest of them, but we see like those four. So it's I don't know where the other ones would be. They might be there disguised as other members of the Kid Pirates, which is just extra funny because the fake Kid Pirates are now sitting in jail and the real Kid Pirates are now currently possibly rusting in the bottom of the ocean, depending on what happens in that regard, which in the anime we just kind of saw a Kid arriving at, Elbaf, so we'll see what happens there. So then we cut to where we see a bunch of the Marines that are on the ships outside of, Egghead, are like listening in on this, and they're like, what? And Vegapunk's message continues. He's like, do bear in mind, I only have access to a handful of poneglyphs. But their combined narrative clearly chronicles an unbelievable history about a great war in the distant past, which we pretty much as the audience kind of already figured that out. It's like the poneglyphs are going to talk about this war. I actually had to do like the math of something with this with my mom last night. I was like, well, there's 4 that are the road poneglyphs that lead you to Laugh Tale. And then there's other ones that talk about, like, the ancient history. There's one that's an apology letter. There's one that talk about, like, the ancient weapons, different things like that. And we know that, like, certain ones talked about locations of other things. So I don't exactly 100% know that stuff. For the exact details, but like Vegapunk, between what he's been gathering up over the years, information that maybe he has from the books from Ohara, combined with information from just other poneglyphs that he's managed to find, he may possibly know the location of the Lost Road poneglyph that was at Fishman Island. That's a possibility. If it's on Elbaf, then it would be with Shanks, but we'll find out about that later, I'm hoping. And we see the Marines are just like, just listening in on this, and Vegapunk continues. He's like, during that period, Joy Boy faced an entity, the organization now known as the World Government. Again, we as the audience knew this. Other people within the story already knew this. Robin probably already knew this anyway, in that regard. And the Marines that are there are just like, wait, isn't that us? It was like, well, he did say he was a pirate, so I was like, well, yeah, we're the world government, we go up against pirates, of course it is. It's like, logic. It's like, okay. It's like, some of the Marines are like, wait a second, wasn't that us? Aren't we associated with the world government? Aren't they our boss? Type of a thing. And it's just like, yeah, but there was just an organization a long time ago. It's just like, okay. Cutting around as Vegapunk keeps talking, so I'll go over what's going on the page first. So first we have Luffy, Dory, and Bragi being chased by Warcury some more. Doesn't look like he's sustained any damage, but he's screaming about Vegapunk. And then we cut up into possibly still roaming around in Punk Records, but also just going through the lab area. We see Mars is walking around, and he's just unleashing, so many different, waves of Conqueror's Haki all over the place, taking out a ton of the snails all at the same time, which is actually a rather effective way of doing that, because it's like, instead of going through and smashing every single one of them, you just, like, knock them all out. These may still be useful to use in the future, but we'll knock them all out now, and maybe they'll be something we can work with later on. So we see that, and Vegapunk is continuing. He's like, back then, they were merely the allied powers. Kind of glad he didn't go with a different reference there that could reference World War II. A temporary coalition consisting of 20 separate kingdoms. This is, again, something that we as the audience already knew, and in the world of One Piece, we know that the world, the citizens as a whole know that the government itself, the world government, was founded by 20 kings. And their descendants are the celestial dragons, and they're like, that's why we get to do whatever the F we want. So we get kind of that set up there. So, that's basically what we've been told anyway, and what is the general understanding is that the 20 kings founded the world government. In this case, we are told that these 20 kings were the ones that fought against Joy Boy back during the Void Century. And Vegapunk is like, it can be assumed that an alliance was the only feasible way to oppose the formidable faction to which Joy Boy belonged. Again, this is implying that Joy Boy was part of another group. Vegapunk, at this point in time, has not stated specifically where Joy Boy is from. He stated that he was a first pirate, that he had the powers that were similar to the sun god Nika of Elbathian legend. A lot of people, and I can go along with this, think that Joy Boy was a giant, and that the giants were originally associated with the Ancient Kingdom, or at the very least the giants of Elbath were associated with the Ancient Kingdom. I know a lot of other people also think that the Ancient Kingdom had like different representations from like all the other races, like Three-Eyed Tribe and Fishmen and Merfolk and Long Neck and or Snake Neck and Long Arm and Long Leg and any of the other combinations of the different races that are in One Piece that we've seen, the Buccaneers, stuff like that. That they were all part of this like coalition or this alliance. That were a faction that were like associated with the Ancient Kingdom. A lot of us readers and watchers and stuff like that think that. Vegapunk doesn't specify that. He also has not specified where he thinks Joy Boy is from, because he has not said, oh, Joy Boy is a giant, or Joy Boy was this, or Joy Boy was that. He's just, Joy Boy had the power of the sun god Nika. Does not specify where Joy Boy was from or what his race was. Although, based off of the giant frickin' straw hat that we saw in the freezer at Marijois, Joy Boy is possibly a giant, was possibly a giant, or some variation. We do see a little silhouetted thing here where we see, what is clearly supposed to be like Joy Boy's silhouette. And he's got, the Nika flame thing behind him. And it's him fighting against these different silhouetted figures with crowns on their heads. No specifics about them. I thought it would have been cute if one of them was like the kind of like the disturbing version of like the Don Quixote Doflamingo's ancestor, the ancient Doflamingo king of Dressrosa during the Void Century. That would have been fun if one of them like looked like that. But none of these look specifically like anything that we've seen before, so we'll see what Oda does with the silhouettes later. But, that goes with that. And Vegapunk continues. I am afraid that the cause of this conflict still eludes me. So I do not presume to judge the morality of the combatants. I can, however, say that this war was a clash of two opposing ideologies. So, again, Vegapunk has stated that he is doing this information, delivering this information to the world based off of the facts that he has found. Should he have found the thing that listed what the cause of the war was, he would be telling us that. But he has not figured out what that is yet, and it was not, or at least at the time of recording this message, he did not know what the cause of said war was. That may be written on a different poneglyph, and that poneglyph might be on Laugh-Tale. Or that might have been a poneglyph that he had not been able to find. And that could be listed somewhere else. So he's basically like, yeah. And as he said before, he's like, I can't judge which one of these is wrong or right, which one was on the right side of history and which one was on the wrong side of history. I can merely tell you that they each had different ideologies and they were going up against each other. Lots of wars throughout human history have been fought between two different ideologies. Some in cases, some were good, some were bad, some were very much like whoever the person in the right side of history was. Then again, it's also the victors write the history, so there's that involved there. As we learn from our own history throughout the entire world. To the victor go the spoils, and to the victor go the ability to determine how bad the enemy was. How horrible of an enemy these people were. So there's that. My computer made noise. Sorry. So that's just basically, Vegapunk is like, I don't know which side was right and which side was wrong. I'm just telling you one side had their own opinions and the other side had different opinions and they didn't work. He's like, I mentioned earlier that Joy Boy was born in a fantastical civilization. One so advanced that it is hard to believe it existed over 900 years ago. So now we get a cut to Zoe, who is still wandering around the new world, and we cut to within the country of Zoe. We see the whale tree. We cut into the city, which looks like it's been majorly repaired since everything happened with Jack, and we see Carrot, new Duchess of Zoe, along with Wanda, Shishilian, and then two of the other ones that are part of the Musketeers. It looks like Wanda has been upgraded from just being one of the regular Musketeers to being part of the elite Musketeers, so that's nice. I'd say she proved herself quite well during the Battle of Onigashima. So we see that, and Carrot is just like, that's amazing in regards to like what Vegapunk is going to say. So it's like we get to see them, so that's great. The message says, the weapons that existed during this century-long struggle are far beyond our modern science. Yep. It kind of goes along the lines of a saying here in our world of like, World War III will be fought with bombs and nuclear weapons and everything like that, and World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones because that's all that's going to be left. So, yeah, I can understand that concept. Cutting away to a different place, we cut to, again, people that we have technically not seen since very much pre-time skip, at least canonically. In the anime, they've popped up and been very annoying since then, but canonically, from the manga, we have not seen them since Long Ring Long Land, and these are the Foxy Pirates. Woo. I don't really care for the Foxy Pirates. So we cut to the Foxy Pirates, and they do not look like they've had a lot of good luck lately. We see Foxy, Portia, and Hamburg. And Foxy, at the very least, managed to grow a mustache and a goatee, so good for him. But they do not have their giant frickin' ship. They do not have their so many members crew that is just so full of people that they've won by cheating at Davy back fights. It's just those three. It's just those three. To be fair, I think it is stated that like Foxy does actually very much care about Portia and Hamburg, that they are like legitimately like his friends. But or at least that's harped on in one of the movies that they did where Foxy shows up. But other than that, I really don't care. And they're just like laughing and being annoying, and he's like, what's that peanut-headed fool saying? And Portia's like, aw, boss, you're making me hungry. Considering the size of their ship and the fact that their sail is basically just like sewn together cloth, although they do have a Foxy figurehead, which is just stupid. And their ship is like a little dinghy that should not survive in the New World. Although we don't know if they're in the New World, in all honesty. We don't know. And Hamburg, and they're just like, yeah, he's so big-headed and laughing and everything like that, so they're hungry. And Vegapunk is like, such technology is baffling even to a genius such as myself. And therefore lies our problem. And therefore lies our problem. We cut back to the Labostratum, where we hear one of the Denden Mushi going off, and Stussy answers it. And we hear, like, someone talking and wheezing on the other end, and she's like, and it's like, Stussy? And he goes, and she's like, huh? And and the voice on the other goes, it's me. And she's like, Edison? And Stussy is still standing at the controls, so that way she can lower the dome, as she said earlier. Kaku is still trapped in his bubble. And considering in the anime, we just the other week had the scene where she knocks him and Lucci on their asses very quickly. So easily. Is so funny. Kaku is just like, well, I can't really do anything, so there's no point in me stressing out right now, so I'll just lay here in the bubble. At least my wounds are attended to, and they're not getting any worse. So he's just like, I'm in a bubble. Yep. So Edison is contacting Stussy, and he's like, lower the barrier and hightail it out of there. And she's like, but I can't. What if something were to happen to the Straw Hat crew? And I don't think we see Stussy look like she's injured anymore. I mean, at the very least, I think the last time we saw her, she did at least have, like, bandages around her middle from where Lucci has, finger gunned her. in the stomach when she tried to protect Stella. So she's probably still at least somewhat injured, but maybe not so bad since she had, Chopper there to help her and stuff. And Edison is continuing, and we see Edison just like sitting on the floor by where he had like cranked up the cloud machine for the Pyrobrine in the last chapter, as we saw what he had done, and he's still just like very badly injured, and probably like on his last legs, unfortunately, because he took a lot of damage. And he's like, I'm gonna be straight with you. There ain't no point in the barrier no more. Not when there are monsters on this island who can ignore it. And we cut to where we see Saturn walking through and doing some pretty much the same thing that Mars is doing, where Saturn is just like unleashing these huge amounts of Conqueror's Haki to knock out the transponder sounds, which, as I said before, is a very good idea. That is a very good way of doing this. It gets them all taken care of very quickly. Or it gets them taken care of in large chunks. Although if they wake back up, they'd probably just start broadcasting again. But given that these are the 5 elders, they probably have very, very high levels of Conqueror's Haki and can probably deal quite a bit of mental damage to these snails. And Edison continues, and it's just like, we've done all we can for him. I'm sure they'll make it somehow. I don't think Edison's going to make it off the island. I really want him to. I want like someone to show up, save Edison, and like get him to the Straw Hats. I'm still hoping that's going to happen. Also, we just had the moment in the anime where, Lilith and Edison are running out trying to get the Seraphim to stop attacking the Sunny in the lab and such. And, Lilith falls and Frankie catches her because she got attacked by one of the Seraphim. And then Edison gets attacked by one of the Seraphim. And Lilith gets panicked because she thought that Edison got destroyed, but he's fine because Sanji saved him. So those moments are adorable, and I love those little moments that they showed there between Edison and Lilith, and that kind of like, she's not so evil. So we have that. We cut to, finally, we see Zoro and Jinbei again, and they're running through the trees, probably trying to make their way to the ship. I think, they were in the Labostratum. So I don't know if that means that they've dropped down to the fabrication sphere, because that's Lucci was still in the Labostratum. So I think they're trying to get to the Thousand Sunnies, where Frankie and Zoro, or not Frankie and Zoro, Jinbei and Zoro are trying to get to. So we have that, and Jinbei's like, Jinbei's talking into the comm on his phone, and I think he's talking to Nami, and she's like, how much longer, Jinbei? And he's like, my apologies, we're almost there. And Zoro's like, there's nothing to apologize for. We were busy. You were fighting a cat that you could have knocked out a lot sooner and caused us a lot less problems. So don't you try to defend yourself. You deserve to get chewed out. And I think it's Nami still on the other, and she's like, is that you, Zoro? You're going to get it later. It's like, yeah, she knows that he did that. And we see Nami still yelling, and she's like, now hurry up. They're moving their ships to barricade the northeast coast. So we cut from there. We cut outside of Egghead Island again, where we see the Giant's ship for the Giant Warrior Pirates. Not the new Giant Warrior Pirates, just the Giant Warrior Pirates. And it's starting to be surrounded and attacked and bombarded by a bunch of the different marine ships that are showing up. Because, attack the giant ship so the other people can't escape. It's a great idea. It works. And Nami's still continuing. It's just like, I'll never forgive you if we get blasted out of the water after all this. So it does look like we can't tell super well, but from what we can see of like this outside view of the island, it does look like the clouds are expanding out more, which is what they want. They want the Pyrobrine and the clouds to form, so that way they can then use that to like move the Thousand Sunny, so they can get far enough out so they can still do the Kude burst to get away. So I think it looks like there's more clouds, possibly. Some of that could also just be smoke from all the fires that are going on the island right now, along with the active Buster Call. But there's that. We cut back to Stussy. And she's just like, that's good to hear. I was worried Stella would never forgive me if I let them get caught. And Edison is just like, as if, now get your ass out of there. And Stussy's like, but I don't know what to do with myself. And Edison's like, huh? And we can see a lot more damage on Edison at this point in time. At this angle, he looks a lot more beaten up. So that's not good. I liked Edison. He was cute. And Stussy's like, now that Stella's gone, who am I meant to live for? I have no purpose. And she just looks very sad because, like, as we've determined from what we've been told in the manga and, you know, in the anime, we just got the scene where it's revealed that Stussy is this clone of Buckingham Stussy from the Rocks Pirates, who is Miss Bokkeen, who is Weevil's mother, as we just saw all of that in the anime get kind of shown. But what we, you know, Stussy, this Stussy, the clone Stussy, who is still very much, of course, just because you're a clone, that does not mean that you are not your own person in this regard. Stussy is very much her own person. She has been alive for probably at least 20-something years. They said that she's been undercover for 20-something years for a very long-run undercover mission in the world government, probably working her way up through the Cypher Pole and up through, you know, all the way up to being Cypher Pole Aegis Zero and being, you know, Stussy, you know, the mistress of the pleasure, queen of the pleasure district and everything like that, that she holds those titles and stuff like that for her undercover work. And all of that, as we saw at, you know, for Big Mom and the Tea Party and everything. But she was doing all of that under the guise of, like, I'm doing this so that way I can earn trust within the world government and inside of these organizations, so I can gain information to then give to Stella to keep him safe, to keep Vegapunk safe. Because for all intents and purposes, from our perspective, Vegapunk is like the closest thing that Stussy has to a father. And she kind of sees him that way, but she also just sees him as her straight up creator. And she's like, I don't know what to do with that. She's like, I don't know what else to do with my life. It's like, where do I go from here? I can't just, what am I supposed to do? The thing that I lived for so long is gone. My reason to protect Stella is gone, and I have no idea what else I'm meant to do with my life, as she says. She's like, I have no purpose. And I'm like, oh, God. And there's a lot of people that have gone through similar things. There's parents who have lost children who are just like, I don't have my purpose in life anymore. My children are gone. What am I supposed to do? Or different things like that. I've lost my job. I've lost this. I've lost that. What am I supposed to do? And Stussy is coming at it from like a very like, I can't go back to the world government. They know that I'm a traitor. That information has been definitely passed along somewhere along the lines here. I can't go back there. I could go on the run, but where am I supposed to go? I mean, like, the best option for her at the moment probably is just to straight up escape with the Straw Hats. I wasn't expecting Stussy to get killed given the information we just learned about her in the manga and in the anime and everything like that. Her getting killed would kind of be like a plot string go bye-bye. I would love it if Stussy, you know, goes with the Straw Hats and she ends up, you know, Straw Hats and Bonnie and Kuma and everything like that. And just kind of is like, finds her new purpose and decides to just protect Bonnie. I would love that. I don't really know what type of a relationship they could end up having in regards to, like, I don't know, maybe Stussy, she wouldn't be able to take over as, like, Bonnie's mom or anything like that, given that Bonnie now has actual memories of Ginny and everything like that. So it's not like Stussy would be able to take over that, but she could be like a big sister or an aunt type of a figure to Bonnie and keep her safe in the process. Plus, Stussy could just freaking teach Bonnie how to fight. She could teach Bonnie all of the different Rokushiki techniques and everything else and how to use hockey and blah, 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 blah. She could teach her all of that stuff. And that would be really good and help Bonnie get really strong for the future. And then she can use those abilities to help with her own fighting abilities and everything like that, to help affect her own distorted future and things like that. So I would love that if that happened. Don't know if that's going to happen, but we also see Kaku, as I mentioned, he's still here. And he's just kind of like listening to this conversation between Stussy and Edison, and he's just like, I was like, he's kind of in a similar boat. Don't know what'll happen, but we'll find. That'll be hopefully revealed at some point, but we'll see. Stussy could just literally decide to walk over to the bubble and, like, pop the bubble that Kaku is in right now, so he's free, and she's like, Go do whatever you want. And then just like grows her bat wings and flies off towards like the ship, or flies to the Straw Hat ship, or flies to like the giant ship and makes her way out of there or something like that. Maybe she decides, screw it, I'm gonna go save Edison and at least get him off this island. Maybe she'll do that. Maybe she'll go try to save Sentamaru. I don't know. We'll find out. So cutting away from Stussy and Kaku, we cut down to by the giant ship on the coast, where we see Sanji has just been dropped on the ground after getting bit by Venus Juro. And Oimo and Kashi and Bonnie are all trying to fight Venus Juro. I can never remember which one's Oimo and which one Kashi, but one of them has Venus Juro like by the tail, is like holding his tail, and Bonnie is like kicking him in the face in her like giantish form, and just bam. So that's awesome. And they're screaming like, don't let him use his sword. This geezer can cut anything. And Nasjuro is just, he's not enjoying this, so he's just like, screw this. And he's thinking like, there's so many life signs that I can send, so many living voices that I can hear, gotta get away from here. And he's like, does one of his slashing techniques directly at Bonnie, who is still in like her giantish form, and she's trying to dodge out of the way. Franky manages to jump up, and given the size, he ends up putting his arm that is like the size of her neck and like pulling her down to get her out of the way of this attack. And I think she reverts back to her regular size. And he's like, Bonnie, get down. So it's just like we got a nice badass moment there from Franky with saving her. Franky's actually gotten to save at least 2 damsels in distress so far this arc. He saved Lilith earlier from falling. We saw that in the anime just a little while ago. And now he saved Bonnie from getting chopped by Venus Juro. So that's good there. And Bonnie reverts back to her, child form, because her distorted future is finished. And why does my camera keep going out of focus? Sorry. I'm moving around too much. So Venus Juro's just like, screw this, and he runs off. He also manages to slice off the figurehead from the giant ship, so they're not gonna like that. But I would say having your figurehead sliced off of your ship is far less damaging to the crew than having the small girl get killed. So we're good there. Franky saved Bonnie, and she's just like, I can't maintain distorted future for very long, and she's just like tired, and Franky's just like, whatever. Vegapunk continues, and he's like, the Void Century ended with Joy Boy's defeat. And we cut around the island again. We see the giant soldier. So it's still doing something. We don't know what. It's still working its way somewhere. Don't know where. We see Junesha there again, represented. And then we cut to where we have Venus Juro has like jumped into the air, and he's just like, screw this. This is not worth my time. And starts running his way through the air, probably just using similar like skywalk technique to like what Sanji uses, and what, the Rokushiki techniques and everything like that. They would definitely know the Rokushiki techniques. They probably developed them. And they're, he's just like, screw this, and runs off, and he's just like, how much do you intend to save, Vegapunk? And we get this really good double page spread that looks so freaking awesome. That is, so Venus Juro just like slashes out and sends this huge slash through the Labosphere, through like the giant cloud base and the Labostratum. So yeah, that's going to cause a lot of damage. And he's like, there are too many life forms up here, because he can't pinpoint any of the snails, so he's just like, screw this, and just slices all the way through. And Vegapunk continues, he's like, but the aftermath had grander consequences. And we see the great design here of just like Nasjuro has just sliced through the Labostratum, so it's just kind of the way that like Kaku sliced through Enies Lobby way back at Enies Lobby when he was first testing out his giraffe powers and his kicking techniques, and just sliced through the building. So it's kind of similar to that. So Vegapunk is continuing. The wake of that ancient conflict scar the world, and those scars never healed. Yep. So we're getting to see cut inside of the Labostratum where everything is happening, and we cut to where this would have been the basement where the CP agents that had all been captured by York, along with all 4 of the Seraphim that are currently on the island, as Snake, as Shark, as Bear, and as Hawk, are all here. And they've, since the building got destroyed, they are now falling out of the bottom of the building. The Seraphim are still in the bubbles, but they're all falling, as are the CP agents, and they're just like, this is not good. We are not in a good position anymore. We really need to get new jobs, just like all these things that are going through their heads right now. And Vegapunk continues, and he's just like, we all know travel between islands can be excruciatingly difficult. The seas one must traverse are so vast and perilous, most people are content to live and die at their place of birth, never experiencing any cultures other than their own. And we cut to just some other little random island. I don't think we've seen this one before. No, doesn't look familiar. I don't think we've seen this one before. And it's just like, and they're just saying, isn't that a bit obvious? Yeah, I mean, everybody knows the seas are dangerous. And then Vegapunk is like, that is common knowledge to us now, but it wasn't like that 1,000 years ago. A catastrophic ecological disaster occurred during the Void Century. And now we've cut to Shimosuke Village, which is, of course, Zoro's hometown, where we see Koshiro, I believe was his name, I'm sorry. Kuina's father, he's there listening to this as we see all of like the kids training in the yard for the dojo. And Vegapunk is like, the ancient world was swallowed by the ocean, and we are now living atop the remnants, continental fragments of the land masses that once were. And we cut to, it's again, this is a double page spread, but it's this beautifully drawn image of just like these ancient underwater ruins, and we see like a whale swimming through there, we see other fish, we see a sea king in the background, and just to give scale for how big this place is, for how big these ruins are. And like, we've seen underwater ruins before in One Piece. I mean, technically Water 7 itself is built on top of like underwater ruins as it's been sinking like for centuries. So there's that. But if I'm remembering correctly, back during Jinbei's cover story, one of the things for the cover story is that he ends up going down to this ancient, these ancient ruins that are at the bottom of the ocean. And that's where like him and where he finds Waratsume, and like that's where like these ancient ruins is where one of the poneglyphs were. So that's where Jinbei gets the poneglyph from, that he then takes to Big Mom as like a peace offering to her or something like that to keep her happy. So there's that. So we've seen underwater ruins before in One Piece, which, I mean, even in our own world, we have underwater ruins. I mean, in regards to continental shift and raising and lowering of the oceans, where I live in Nebraska used to be frickin' underwater. So, millions of years ago, used to be underwater. We still find tons of fossils of marine life in Nebraska. There's tons of them. Just to show like that difference. But what Vegapunk is talking about is not about like this is over the course of like centuries and millennias and millions of years. This happened over the course of 100 years, which is a very big difference. And I know that even in our world, when it comes to climate change, we've made a lot of bad mistakes when it comes to climate change, and that it is affecting the world, and that the ocean levels are rising within our world. But this is different. This is much more on a catastrophic side. We cut to where we see the Revolutionary Army are listening to this, and they're just like, what? That's not good. Dragon is the only one that, well, Dragon and Sabo, and maybe Koala, well, no, Koala looks surprised as well, but maybe Dragon and Sabo are like the only two that are not like surprised about this at the moment. The other ones are just like, oh my god! And everything. And, we see Sabo, and then, like, the message continues. It's just like, the world of a millennia ago sleeps unseen at the bottom of the ocean. as Vegapunk continues. And he's just like, I know it is hard to believe my own word alone, but there really were multiple vast continents back then. The closest thing I think we've come to seeing like continents in One Piece, like Dawn Island, where Luffy is from, seems to be fairly big, but I don't think we've gotten a full measure of how big that kingdom and that island is. The Red Line is like the closest thing that they have at this point in time in regards to what is a continent, and I really wouldn't consider the Red Line full on a continent. It's a giant wall is what it is. And now we cut to Koko Village, or Kokoyashi, which is of course Nami's hometown, and we see that Genzo, Nojiko, we see the doctor, we do not see Johnny or Yosaku here. I kind of hoped we would, but we don't see them. We haven't seen them for a while, but we see that the village seems to be at least somewhat doing better. We know that Nojiko and Genzo have been paying a lot of attention to stuff with Nami whenever anything comes up with the bounties and the Straw Hats and everything like that. So we see them, and like they have like the snail in the middle of the village as they're listening to it, and Nojiko is just deciding to like walk off, and they're like, everybody's like, this is the same, and Genzo is just like, Nojiko, where are you going? The world is the world is at stake. And Nojiko's full concept here is probably like, I personally cannot do anything about what is going on in the world right now. I'm gonna go take care of my tangerines. So she's just like, yeah, fill me in later. I'm gonna go check on the tangerine orchard, and walk up there just like, Nojiko. So it's just like, that's just funny there. Yeah, Nojiko is very much of the realist of like, well, I personally cannot do anything about things that are sinking right now for the ocean levels rising, so I'm going to go check on my tangerine trees. Although I do like that we see this because it shows that Kokoyashi Village has not been affected by the rise in sea levels, the rising sea levels, so that's good. Cutting back to Vegapunk's message. The change in the world helps explain how the century of history could be censored. A feat that seems nigh impossible, but it makes sense when you consider the undeniable conclusion, all the data points too. Within a mere century, the average sea level rose by a staggering 200 meters. For feet references, it was like 656 feet or something like that when I looked up for conversion, which is a lot. In regards to, like, you know, water level going up, walking 665 feet or 56 feet is not that far. Walking 20 meters is not that far. Water rising that much is a lot. Anything rising that much is a lot. That's bad. And the Marines are just like, oh my god, they're just like all freaking out, and they're just like, what, you're kidding? 200? They're just like all freaking out about that. And then there was like, a warship's only 60 meters tall. No wonder the old world disappeared. And one of the other people that's like, I guess a higher ranking one was just like, hey, guys, get your head in the game. Hey, stop listening to this crap. We have work to do. The Seraphim have all fallen. The Seraphim and all those imprisoned Cypher Pole agents were spotted falling out of the lab building. We've got to rescue them. Yes, let's run into the island that is currently on fire to rescue a bunch. Okay, I understand wanting to try to rescue the Seraphim. That's reasonable. Not that they'll listen to you, because you don't have an authority chip, and you're not Sentomaru or the Vegapunks or anything along those lines. But at least this gets the Seraphim so they're somewhere back in play, which could be useful if someone else shows up and is able to, well, if the Gorosei find the Seraphim, they will just pop the bubbles and order them to go and attack the Straw Hats. That is what they will do. And kill the Straw Hats and kill Bonnie and just eliminate all of the snails. Actually, the better answer for that would be just have the Seraphim go out and try to destroy as many of the snails as possible, just to increase the number of people going after the snails. And we'll see what happens if that ends up being the case. But, so it's just like, yeah, let's send your men back into the fiery island. We cut to Jaya again, where they're just laughing at Vegapunk, and it's just like, did you hear that? His tall tales keep getting taller. The old fart's lost his marbles. What a joke. They're just laughing. Cutting to more places that we haven't seen for a while. And more people we haven't seen for a little while, at least in these two people's case, not since the Reverie. We cut to the Sakura Kingdom, which is on Drum Island, which is, of course, where Chopper is from. And we see Dalton and Kureha and one of the Lopins, which are the giant bunny things that are part of the guard at this point in time. And we see them, and Dalton is just like, is that really possible? And Kureha's just like, even now, the world still finds a way to keep things interesting. Then we cut again to people that we have not seen, or at least someone that we have not seen for a while. We cut to see Miss Goldenweek, or Marianne from Baroque Works. And we have not seen her since the Meet Baroque's cover story, which I believe was being published during Enies Lobby, I believe. When I was looking this up, I believe they were coming out during the Enies Lobby arc. And we see her, and she's like in her nice little artist outfit. She has an apple for a head. She has an apple hat. I love that. I love that little reference there. I forgot about that when they were doing everything. I just pictured it being a beret, but no, it's an apple hat, which is just very similar to, of course, Vegapunk's apple head. So that's fun. We see her, and it seems like, I think she's with Miss Valentine and maybe Miss Merry Christmas. The one that can turn into a mole that Usopp and Chopper had to deal with, and of course, Miss Valentine, of course, the one that has like the kilo fruit that can make herself heavier and lighter and stuff like that. I think those are supposed to be them that we see here with Marianne. So these are the ones who set up the new Spider Cafe, along with, I believe it was Zala, who is Miss Doublefinger, Mr. 5, who I think was the one that had the bomb fruit, Mr. 4, who I believe was the one who didn't have a devil fruit. He just liked baseball and was very stupid, but his dog was Lasso. And the 3 girls, yeah. I think those are the only ones that I think were involved in setting up the new Spider Cafe, so they could all actually kind of more live out their dreams. So there's that. So we see them. And someone on the island is just like, and there's cactuses all over this island. So I don't think they're supposed to be in Alabasta, because the clothes don't look like Alabasta. And I don't think they would have gone back to Whiskey Peak on Cactus Island. So I don't think that's where they are. So I think they're just on some other like desert island type setup. Or Old West Town design island, somewhere in the Grand Line. In the Paradise side. That's, I think, where they are. Because the location of the Spider Cafe was never revealed. So there's that. But someone's just like, that mountain is around 200 meters, pointing at a mountain. And they're like, yeah, you're saying something that tall would be submerged. That's awful. How many people died? Thank you. Someone brought it up. I am so happy someone did. Yeah, because if the ocean levels raise that quickly, 200 meters very, very quickly, or at least within like a short amount of time over a very short number of years or a very short number of days or weeks, give or take, that's going to be a very hard thing for people to be able to move out of the way so easily or so well. So that's saying something. Although, I will point this out, and someone else may point this out as well. We know how far back the castle at Alibarna and Alabasta was built, and we know how far back the tree that was the tree of knowledge was planted on Ohara. That tree was over like 5,000 years old by the time everything happened, and that's like the oldest known point to a degree that we know of in regards to like a living thing in the One Piece world, was that tree that became the tree of knowledge. And I don't remember exactly when Alibarna was built, but if I'm remembering correctly, it was built pre-Void Century, like several hundred years before the Void Century. I know I talked about it in one of the videos I did about Alabasta, but I don't remember specifically. But that freaking that palace and that tree and some other bits that are like these very old buildings or very old things imply that those either had to be moved at some point in time, or that the islands that they were on, as the continents were covered to the just where it's just islands at this point in time, then that would have been quite a bit of like how were these located beforehand? So it's like, that's kind of a question there. We know, some people are like, oh, well, if the red line gets destroyed, then that's going to do something with the ocean. But like, if it's destroyed and just gotten rid of without just like crumbling into the ocean, then that should, or something along those lines, then, the water won't rise, but the water will be able to, go the way that it's supposed to, as opposed to the way that the red line makes it work with the calm belts and the four blues and the ocean and the paradise and the new world sides of the Grand Line. So we'll see what happens there. Vegapunk continues, and we are back at Water 7 because we see people wearing like galley law stuff, and there's like cranes and stuff in the background. So we're seeing at Water 7, and they're just like, this begs the question, how and why did such a flood occur? Naturally, our first inclination might be to assume it was some kind of natural disaster. However, I can say for certain that it was not such a thing. It was man-made. It was a man-made calamity. I know a lot of people have been pointing out like flood myths and stuff like that from around the world. There's I'm most familiar with like Christianity, so I was like, the Noah and the Ark and everything like that, which of course is already referenced in One Piece with the Noah, that is in Fishman Island. And there's like other, almost every single culture in the world has some form of like a flood myth in some variation. That is like, oh, the gods flooded the earth because they were angry at humanity, or out of the flood arose, what became humans, or whatever the case may be. Lots of different myths have those types of, lots of different mythologies have like some representation of a flood myth. Because at some point in time there were like these huge floods that have happened throughout humanity that were like natural disasters and that were horrible for humanity. So there's that. But going from there, we cut to the World Economic News teapot balloon, flying in the air, and we have Morgan screaming, "You can't be serious!" And then Vivi has just grabbed his beak and shut it, and she's just like, "Shh." She's like, "Hush, bird, I am listening to the genius." So Vivi, yay. I actually have like a Vivi video that I'm working on right now. So, well, yes, it is a Vivi video. So we'll see what happens with that. That should be up soon though. And Vegapunk is like, if this catastrophe was brought about by natural means, there would be records denoting records be denoting early warning signs several centuries earlier. Fair point. It was a severe. It was to serve. Sorry, it was a severe world-altering event after all. Brain didn't want to do that correctly. Sorry, it was a severe world-altering event after all in regards to this flood, yes. But all my research in meteorology, geology, ecology, and atmospheric science confirmed that there were no such natural buildup, as in just huge amounts of water building up over somewhat quick amount of time, but enough where it's just they can tell that it's rising, kind of what happened in Wano, and they moved Wano after they built the walls. So there's that. It's it is impossible for such a drastic change to happen spontaneously within the span of a mere 100 years. Again, in our world, climate change has been happening roughly since the beginning of the industrial age, when we started burning coal on a lot more mass, and that started affecting things. And global warming technically started during that time frame and has just subsequently gotten worse and worse and worse over the last century and a half or so. And even more in the last, 2-3 decades in my lifetime. So there's that, or within the time that One Piece has been being published. In that time frame. But and yes, sea levels have been rising in our own world, but not nearly this fast. And we have been able to document it with the ice caps melting and sea levels rising and things like that within our own world. Vegapunk continues, meaning The cause lies elsewhere. My suspicions were confirmed a few days ago when I analyzed the current sea levels, the world's current sea level. It may be hard to accept, but that disaster 800 years ago was caused by ancient weapons technology capable of sinking the world. And as he's talking, we cut to where we see Mars is still going through and, just dropping snails left and right with Conqueror's hockey. Saturn, we see Saturn, he's kind of doing the same thing. We see Mercury is still like charging after Luffy and Dorian Broggy and everything like that. So there's that. Then we cut to Marie Joie and we cut to not the Celestial Dragons, but we cut to where we see the Pangea Castle. We cut inside the Flower Room. And we see Nika, and we cut to Nika's face. It is, however, unfortunately still just silhouettes and shadow. Let me finish reading the message, and then I'll go with the little tangent that I just thought of. Or in a certain degree. And Vegapunk continues. And that very same firepower evidently still exists, just waiting to be used again, referring to the Mother Flame, or the thing that's powered by the Mother Flame. In other words, that great war, which ravaged the world during the Void Century, is still ongoing. Yeah. Given the fact that there is still technically a war going on within the world of One Piece between the world government and the Marines versus pirates, yeah, that makes sense that the world war is still technically going. It hasn't ended because the wills of Joy Boy and all of the others that were like these Will of D and stuff like that, since we believe that Joy Boy is connected to the Will of D and so on and so forth, yeah, that means that the war is not finished yet, and the fact that Imu is still willing to use these ancient weapons, or these, new fandangled versions of the ancient weapons, means that this war is not finished. I forgot to do this before I recorded the video, but I was going to check what the longest war in human history was. In fact, I'll just do that now Okay, so according to a quick Google search, technically the longest war in human history is called the Reconquista, which lasted 781 years. That seems suspiciously close to 800 years ago. Yeah. So, the Reconquista is believed to be the longest war in history. The Reconquista was a religious war between the Catholic Spanish Empire and the Moors, who lived in what is now known as Algeria and Morocco, and began in 718 or 722 BC, or excuse me, CE, and ended in 1492. The war was motivated by nationalism, religious fervor, and imperial ambition. Yeah, I have heard of the Reconquista. I did not realize it was that long, although the fact that it is roughly just shy of 800 years kind of implies something. So maybe Oda is referencing that in this, somewhere in that regard, for lasting the 800 years. Since earlier in the chapter he mentioned that the Void Century personally supposedly ended when Joy Boy died. So there's that. But the war has still continued. In skirmishes, there's probably been other revolutionary armies. There's been other pirates and other factions that have opposed the world government in some shape or form. Some of those islands may have ended up being where they have the different, the population extermination games, things like that. Anything that they deemed that could be a threat that wasn't willing to fall under their rule, minus Wano and some other places, and Elbath and stuff. they just decided, oh, we'll just kill everybody on the island and go from there. Those are like continued wars going on and on and on in that regard. So there's that. The thing I just wanted to mention about Eam, and I've gone out of focus again. Why do you do that? So the last thing I wanted to mention here about Eam, and I'm like, I had the thought of like, well, cutting to this moment would be like, it'd been a great way of like revealing Eam's face. But I'm like, no, think back on that. If he had revealed Eam's face here, then instead of everything that like, yeah, everything else in the chapter would get talked about, but everybody would be like, oh my god, we know what Eam looks like now. Oh my god, this. Oh my god, that. And like, that's what everybody would like focus on and be like, Eam is male, Eam is female, Eam is this, Eam is that, Eam looks like this, Eam looks like that. And I can understand why Oda didn't want to do that here. I'm hoping we soon get the reveal of what Eam looks like, but, we'll see. That would be a great way of, like, ending Vegapunk's message, would be we cut back to Marie Joie after Vegapunk has finished his message, and it's, like, maybe the next chapter, and maybe, the Straw Hats have managed to escape, or, like, at the end of Egghead Arc, if they cut back to Marie Joie, and, like, the Gorosei are calling Eam and telling him that they failed, that the message still got out, that Luffy and his crew managed to escape, but like maybe they captured someone, I don't know, and they're like telling Eam, and like we cut back to Marie Joie, like we have like a good chunk of the chapter with like them just like talking with Eam, and then we cut to where Eam is possibly sitting on the empty throne, possibly still in this room, possibly moved on to a different room or something like that. And we cut to Eam, and like maybe throughout the chapter, as like Eam and the Gorosei are talking, we see stuff that's like slowly like Eam is coming into focus in regards to like slowly like revealing like Eam's outfit, revealing the crown, different things like that, and like different panels. And then like the last page of the chapter is like this full page spread of like Eam, kind of like how we had like Eam sitting on the empty throne, but like Eam standing there in their full glory, and we finally get to see what they look like, because like this chapter would have, like maybe that chapter down the line would like focus very much on Eam and like the relationship of like how terrified the Gorosei are that like they failed, that so much of this information managed to get out. And like they didn't kill Nico Robin, they didn't kill the Straw Hats. Yes, Vegapunk's dead, but some of the satellites escaped, or something along those lines, in regards to like Lilith and Atlas, or however that ends up going. But overall, it was a net loss for the world government, because so much of this information got out. Knowledge of Nika got out, knowledge of what happened 800 years ago got out, knowledge of Joy Boy got out, things like that. And like if we cut back to Marie Joie, like after like the Gorosei have like had this full conversation with Eam, like maybe a full chapter or half a chapter or something like that at like the end of the Egghead arc, and then we just have this like full page spread or something like that where we see Eam standing there in all of their glory, and we finally get to see what they look like. I personally want Eam to be female, just because so many manga have had just like, there's this bad guy at the top of this whole thing. Like, Bleach had that with Aizen, and then they had that with, Yuha, and then, like, Naruto, I know, has had a lot of, bad guys in it, and, like, yeah, they have, like, different bad women and stuff like that throughout the different stories and stuff like that. And One Piece has had a couple of, bad girls, but there haven't really been where, like, beyond, like, Big Mom be like this like overarching villain of like technically the entire story and history for like the last 900 years. I really want Eam to be female. I think Oda could pull that off really, really well. I mean, like, even if they do something where it's like, okay, I know this wouldn't happen, but I would love it if somehow there was like an homage in regards to like Eam being somehow being an homage to like Maleficent from Disney, or the evil queen from Disney that's like Snow White's stepmother, something like that, where it's just like, doesn't have to be a full-on reference, but I would love it if there ends up being something where like Eam is female. And I know a lot of other people want Eam to be female as well, but that would be like a great way of like shift Eam, like at the end of like whatever chapter like ends Egghead with like the Straw Hats have escaped and their allies have escaped, and however that ends up going. Injured but escaped. That type of a thing. And then like that would be a great way of ending that chapter. But back to the current chapter that we just got. Yes, there's lots of information here, and I'm out of focus again. Come on, back into focus. Why do you do that? I don't know why it does that. I moved and it goes out of focus. I'm like, should I not move? I have to move. So yes, we got lots of information here in regards to like the ocean levels have risen 200 meters. That, you know, there's ruins underneath the ocean that are where, you know, the civilizations used to be, very similar to like what happened with Wano. Also, I don't think we've ever gotten a full-on estimation for like how tall the walls are outside of Wano. And if those are like 200 meters, then that gives us a good chunk of like, that's how high up the water went. That's how far below the ruins are for Wano. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But that's what I have for this. I thank you for watching. Sorry I went on that Eam tangent at the end. But maybe that'll end up turning into something else down the line. But that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And I hope you have a nice rest of your day. And for all of you who watch this who are graduating, or someone who in your lives who are graduating, congratulations to them. Bye.